Hi everyone, how are you? Transmitir. So I'm so sorry. We were waiting here talking until uh, I was waiting for the connection, and the moment we were supposed to connect, something happened and the whole screen left. So yeah, good start. Here we are again, doing exactly the same in the same channel from Egypt in a hotel room again. Um, After so long without doing this, at 20 hours from Egypt, as we did the whole year for 365 days in 2020 and 2021 for the path of the I am. So I'm so glad to be here again with all of you, kind of repeating the same pattern. As you see, sometimes it's not that bad to repeat some patterns. So why for me it's so important to make these transmissions of the days, the 5 days out of time from Egypt again. Um, these days out of time, um, at the same time. Why is so important for me? So the reason why for me is so special to do this from here, from Egypt, is because this July, we published the last book of conversations between I and Am. So for me, was very very special because I I decided to publish all the books in 1 year, and it had to be in this year. So it's been a crazy, crazy work from all the team trying to make it possible, trying to manifest all of that together as a book, as 12 books. So my goal was to try to publish one every month, but of course, it was impossible. We had to do it every 3 months. But to publish 12 books in 1 year, it's a lot of work. So I have to thank the editors in Argentina that did it, and of course the translation, the edition, the design. Um, Ivy, Albert, Laura, Max, who've been working on making it possible in such a short time and so perfectly in English and Spanish. So the last one was published this month, and for me, it's like, wow! I finally can see manifested everything that we walked together in 2020 and 2021, which has been a lot. So for me personally, to have that in a physical way, it's a very intense and good guide that I'm so happy to have. And all of those books were born here in the Nile. So um, for me, it's like very, very significant. So 12 books in 1 year. And that was crazy. So I don't have none. I have none of them. I don't have any of the 12 books. So I hope to arrive somewhere eventually and get all the books and have them for myself and read them and go through, because I hope they help you in the same way that they have helped me. So, uh, of course, those 12 books for me is like open therapy. So it's more about my own therapy than anything else. But the idea of doing that, those conversations with myself, was mainly to serve as a example or as a guide for you to also start those conversations with yourself, and to kind of have a map on how can you do that, how can you start those conversations with yourself. So it's not it's not just about to know me or to learn about stuff. It's a guide for you to also learn how to connect with your own higher self. So that's why I say that for me it's very, very emotional, intense to begin this new year, when we just finished publishing the last book. And I find myself here in Egypt again, doing these connections of the 5 days out of time beginning it with you, and yeah, connecting with all of you for the new cycle to begin. So one of the signatures of everything that I have been doing for the I am path was to translate myself from Spanish to English, English to Spanish. So this has been like the signature of the Yo Soy. And I think that in all this time, we have been trying to decide, should I keep doing that, or we just choose one language and stick with it? But actually, this is kind of my frequency signature to share the information, because if I speak only one language and you have subtitles, and we have to wait for the edition and everything. And of course, there's a lot of technology now that can help to translate, but actually, this is my frequency signature for this journey. So I would love to maintain it this way because of that, more than um, for the translation itself. So I would rather share with everyone that frequency. So yeah, so you will have to get used to it, or yeah, you don't have to pay attention to everything I say. Um, so to begin with all of this, I would like to share something which is related to a feeling that I have been um, activating in the last weeks regarding everything that I'm trying to do for the new steps that are coming. Every time that I was sitting down to write down the projects that I want to do, it was impossible. Like a kind of depression was coming inside of me. And I didn't know why it was so difficult for me to manifest everything, because I've been feeling like that lately. Every time that I try to write down everything that I have to do. And so I was trying to also remember how all these conversations with the I am started, how this project started, how this was one of the most powerful things that I've done in my journey of consciousness. And yeah, and so the past 3-4 weeks, I've been going through all of that, navigating this weird depression and void. So that void that I felt was related to how um, like for a long time Merlin was guiding me through a process to understand what my mission was. And and through all that process, he said, you will be accomplishing your purpose the moment that you release all the ideas of your projects until you fall in love with void, with nothing. And the moment you do that, you will start to understand what is your actual mission. And so he said that, and that specific week, I met someone that represented nothing, void. And and I felt the biggest love that I ever felt in this life. And suddenly, uh, my heart was broken. Like in 1 month, everything ended abruptly, and my heart was broken. And that thing happened in the center of CERN in Geneva. And it was a love story, but it was related to something that was happening in my own memory. Um, so when I was there in Geneva and I felt my heart broken, I could sense, I could feel also the particles being broken. And then I remember how I got into this reality when the tapestry of time was broken by the Hadron Collider, and the structure of time was broken. So the rhythm of nature of the universe was broken. So that void that I felt is that heart of time that was broken. And and in that moment, I felt that I left every idea, ontocracy, the network connection around the planet, all of that just disappeared. All of that was nothing. It changed completely. It was void. And I allowed myself to fall into that void so much that it made nothing made sense. And Merlin said, from there, you're going to be able to create again. From the very beginning, you're going to be able to create again. And so from all that void, the only thing that I was able to do was to ask myself, who am I? What am I doing? What is the purpose? So when I did that question to my to my being, to myself, that's how the conversation started. And that's how we walked a whole year with conversations between I and am. And this was just because I had this feeling, this idea that I needed to connect with the void and to go deeper into that void. And so if you see the whole year of the I am, it was very structured according to rhythms. We need to repeat these rhythms every cycle, through every month, every week. So the I and am, we're trying to weave again the two sides of the heart. So weaving time through going through the process of acknowledgement of who you are. So I was thinking about that because that void opened the door for one of the biggest projects that I ever did in my life. So that's why when we were closer to the days out of time, I said, this is clearly a calling for me to go to the no time, but I have to go to a point of no space. So I can actually go to the seed, to the root of space too. In a time that is no time, in a space that represents no space. So of course, when I thought about, let's go to the to a space of no time. So what is a no space? And that connects me to the mythology of Egypt, of ancient Egypt, telling the story of the void. And for the Egyptians, the beginning of everything was the ocean of void, of nothing, that they called Nun. Nun, N-U-N. Nun, which is N-U-N. In the story of the Genesis of Egypt, of how Egypt tells the genesis of everything, they describe that the beginning of everything was void. The beginning of everything was a huge ocean of nothing that actually contained everything, and that's why you couldn't perceive anything. So the beginning of everything, the one that contained the void, the nothing, was the void called Nun. So in the story, says that from this void, some waves started to move, and they push from the core something that emerged from Nun, from the void. And that was like a rock or a hill that came out of that ocean. And now you could see something. So Ben Ben is the hill, the pyramid that came out of the ocean of void, which is basically the crystallization, the manifestation of geometry, of a code in the middle of nothing. En la mitología egipcia se describe esto como un océano donde una isla emerge, la isla de Ben Ben. So, of course, in the Egyptian mythology, they describe that from this ocean of darkness and nothing, this tiny island emerges, Ben Ben. Ra es el dios sol, pero en realidad no hace referencia al disco solar, hace referencia a la luz pura. So Ra is how we call the god of the sun, but actually it's not the sun itself, it's the pure light that emerges from the nothing. When the light of that sun, the pureness of that sun shines and brights much more and more in all the ocean of the void, suddenly the ocean starts to evaporate, which means actually that the ocean of nothing now divides in particles, like drops of water. And those particles now become clouds. So the ocean of nothing becomes billions of options that are evaporating from water. And that's the origin of the goddess Tefnut, which is the humidity, the water that spreads in the everything. So now that the water is levitating and going throughout the entire cosmos, now these clouds of the universe starts to move and expand the frequency, the vibrations towards all the cosmos. And that's what we call the breath of God, or the breath of Ra, the respiration of the divine that sends the breath of the sun, of light. So that goddess is called Shu. Shu is the divine of air, is the divine of whisper, the one that brings the message. So from this expansion of Shu, bringing Tefnut, the humidity of the ocean of nothing, towards the cosmos, now the drops of water will start to get together as chemical elements, and they will create the drops that eventually will become worlds. And that's how Geb, the earth, is being born. Every world, every planet is being born from the spirit of Geb. So from this division where the worlds are created and every planet now is formed, now we can differentiate between what is in a planet and what is outside the planet. So that moment, we create the idea of heaven and earth. And that's the birth of one of the last amazing goddess of all creation, which is Nut, the skies, the stars. So these five divinities, the four that emerged and created the universe, and the one that breathes the universe, which is Ra in the center, are the five main divinities that expands everything, that expands the creation in a time of no time, in a time that doesn't have rhythm. So in this structure, what we have is five codes, five elements that will give structure to everything with no time. So that's why in the 5 days out of time, what the Egyptians used to do was to celebrate these five forces of creation that are out of time. So that's why in these 5 days out of time, what people used to do was to talk about these five entities, five divinities that are constantly creating the divinity, the matter, the existence with no time. So that's why for me it was very interesting to go back to the very origin of the Egyptian cosmology, because the forces of the everything are being born in no time, in a place of no space. So how do we call during the path of the I Am to these five divinities that I'm talking right now? We call them Tetrahedron, Hexahedron, Octahedron, Dodecahedron, and Icosahedron. So basically are geometrical structures, codes that with no time, no space, they manifest everything in the universe. So I think it's important for us to kind of understand and know what are the stories of this mythology that have created us. What happened with the relationship between Nut and Geb? What happened in the stories of expansion of Tefnut and Shu? What are the transcendental transformations that Ra had in the process of expansion? When we walk through the path of this mythology, what we realize is that we are acknowledging the processes that we walked within ourselves. So part of the story that I would like to share with you in these 5 days is how this story emerged, what happened to them, why they created that structure, why are we part of the creation of that structure, if there are some mistakes in the structure, and how the same system created entities to try to compensate and to balance and correct those errors. So the idea is that through these stories, we could learn and understand what can we do to correct and to balance ourselves? What can we do to correct and balance the world? And what can we do to understand the story on how to correct the universe? So another thing that we might go through in the story is, what does it mean, an error? And why do we always try to correct an error? That's part of the mythology. So for me, was the thought was, if I have to understand everything from the void in no time, in the middle of a space that has no space, I will have to go to a space that is locked in time. So what a better place to connect with no time, no space, where everything is stuck in time and space, than the Elephantine Islands of Hesa, Bigay, and Filet, in the middle of the old dam and the new dam in Aswan. So I invite you to look into a map of Egypt, and you can see that the river Nile comes from Ethiopia in one side and Sudan in the other side, and they connect in Sudan, and then the river come to Egypt and ends in the dam, in the new dam of Aswan. And then a few kilometers after, you have the old dam of Aswan, and the river continues until the Mediterranean Sea in the delta of the Nile. But in that tiny little part in between two dams, time and space are locked. And right in this place is where the temple of Mother Isis is. So it's the place of creation. Are the dark waters that are stuck in between the two dams of Aswan. And in these islands of Hesa, there are some hills, some rocks that represent the beginning of everything. It represents Ben Ben. That's where I decided I have to be there in that precise place for the days out of time. And of course, my intention was to come here, to anchor in this place, and to start sharing today, the day of Tetrahedron and fire, to ignite the spark of this story. So in the next 5 days, my intention is to start telling you the story that will lead us to understand what is our task for the next 4 years. 4 years of task that it's going to be related to the mythology and the story of these 5 gods and goddesses that explain the creation and have been trying to compensate the expansion of the void in the everything. So I don't want to go deeper into the stories because I just want for everyone to align today with the idea of this concept, of this story, and use the tetrahedron as the symbol of this heel that comes out of the ocean, that shines like the sun, igniting the spark for us to recognize within that the inner void, that inner vast ocean, is the spark for the creation of everything. So before we begin with the alignment, I would love for all of you to help me sharing this video, help me uh, letting everyone know about these next 4 days, so they can check this video, align with everything, and follow live the alignments that we're gonna do for these next days. So everyone knows the story. I will invite you everyone to sit comfortable, to find a spot as I introduce Guille, that will accompany us with the music, as usual in the path of the I am. Así que we love to repeat patterns. I know that in the path of consciousness and spirituality, a lot of people wants to escape or break patterns, but actually, when you treat them well and you know how to use them, suddenly you actually create a network and a planetary grid. So we take the time to stretch the body, to accommodate the body, to caress, massage, to thank our body. Remember that the body, the physical body, is the vehicle of consciousness. So for consciousness to go through every one of our cells, we have to respect the body and to take care of what it needs. We take deep breaths. We close our eyes whenever we feel that. Or we can also just focalize our sight in a fixed point. We take deep breath through the mouth and exhale through the mouth, inhale through the nose. When I exhale through the mouth, I am exhaling everything that I don't need in my body. So be aware of that. Breathe deep and exhale, releasing everything that you don't need. Repeat it all the times that you need. When you feel ready, you start just breathing through the nose, inhaling and exhaling through the nose. This calibrate and balance your thoughts and emotions. Very slow. As I take deep breath, I imagine that I come inside a temple through my nose to the center of my head. My skull is a huge cupola. The decorations of the brain all around, a beautiful throne in the center. As I walk to the center of this temple, to the throne, I imagine behind it stairs that go down in a spiral deep through my throat. I imagine that as I go down through these stairs, every step is a note, a letter, a word, a sound. All of them create my truth. As I descend to my heart, I see a huge hole divided in 4 chambers that are half covered in water. I walk through the chambers, feeling the water. These are the chambers of my heart. I walk through the chambers of my heart, feeling the water inside, touching it with my hands. As I finish my walk through my heart, I find a tunnel that takes me through a forest, going towards a mountain in the deep caves of it, the deep caves of my own self. I keep walking down to the caves of myself, to the dark waters of the intestines, where I cannot see any more light, where there is no temple. I find myself in the primordial essence, in the void. I recognize here, as I breathe, that nothing else exists, just the infinite possibilities. I descend to the darkest waters and deepest oceans of myself. And as I fall deep, I can sense the presence of the fundamental stone that lies beneath everything. It's a raw diamond. A ruby. Under the pressure of the ocean of nothing. And as I get close to it, I can see myself reflected, my eyes bringing the light towards it and making it shine. As I observe it, my consciousness brings all the light of every photon throughout my eyes. to be directed to the stones that shine, now as the philosopher's stone. I recognize as I breathe that under the pressure of all my darkness and void relies the fundamental stone of my entire creation. This is my own Ben within the ocean of Nun. It's protected by the soft waters of Tefnut and inspired by the breath of my Holy Spirit, Shu. I recognize bringing my hands to this lower point of my body, that from this tiny rock ignites the spark that makes the Kundalini of my body to shine. I recognize the power of the Creator within me. I recognize the fundamental stone in the basis of my temple as my body. And I recognize that when I observe it with consciousness, I make it into the philosopher's stone that is able to transmute my being. That point that I block, that point that has the power of my being and that I don't allow to move, to flow, that point I'm scared to release, and that embodies all the powers of my being. That is my Ben. The center that makes me into the Creator. And I repeat to myself, I am the void as Creator. I am the void as Creator. I am the void as Creator. I take a deep breath, and from that point, I start to massage my body, expanding with my hands this consciousness to my legs, to my waist, and all the rest of my body. Starting to stretch my body and softly coming back here and now. Recognizing that within ourselves we have all the story because we are fractals. And no matter where, in which part of the world you are, the world is within. Welcome to the island of the origin. I'm from here to create a new world. Thank you everyone for being there. Thank you, Guille. And see you tomorrow at the same time.